Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The United States has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, ending 20 years of its military presence. In a statement, President Joe Biden said the world will hold the Taliban to its commitment to allow safe passage for those that want to leave Afghanistan. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid says the group wants good relations with the world, including the U.S. Meanwhile, the resistance forces say 8 Taliban fighters have been killed during fighting in the Panjshir Valley. Pakistan has called on the international community to differentiate between the spoilers and supporters of peace and stability in Afghanistan. Addressing a press conference along with German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas in Islamabad, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Pakistan wants peace in Afghanistan and the world must support it. For his part, the German Foreign Minister thanked Pakistan for the safe evacuation of foreign nationals from Kabul. At least 8 people have been wounded in drone strikes on Saudi Arabia's Abha airport. State television reported the attack that also damaged a civilian airplane was carried out by Houthi rebels in Yemen. The Saudi-led coalition earlier said it intercepted a Houthi drone that was targeting the airport. Mexico has reported 326 deaths and over 5,000 infections in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 118 more people lost their lives to the virus and 3,800 tested positive overnight. Globally, the coronavirus caseload has surpassed 217 million, while the death toll is over 4.5 million. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the news in detail. The United States has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, ending 20 years of its military presence. President Joe Biden says the world will hold the Taliban to their commitment to allow safe passage for those who want to leave Afghanistan. More in this report.
Foreign forces' departure from Afghanistan marks the end of a fraught, chaotic and bloody exit from the years' longest war. Nearly 2,500 US troops and an estimated 240,000 Afghans lost their lives in the war that cost some $2 trillion. The US Embassy in Kabul has suspended operations, saying it will continue to assist American citizens and their families in Afghanistan from Doha, Qatar. More than 122,000 people have been airlifted out of Kabul since 14th of August, the day before the Taliban regained control of the country 2 decades after being removed from power by the US-led invasion in 2001. The withdrawal was announced by General Frank McKenzie, who told a Pentagon briefing that the chief of US diplomat in Afghanistan, Ross Wilson, was on the last C-17 flight out.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens, third country nationals, and vulnerable Afghans. The last C-17 lifted off from Hamid Karzai International Airport on August 30th this afternoon at 3:29 p.m. East Coast time.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken vowed that the Biden administration will keep up relentless efforts for evacuations. Blinken said fewer than 200 U.S. citizens were believed to have remained in Afghanistan. Speaking at the State Department, he also said the Taliban have to earn international legitimacy and support.
We will stay focused on counterterrorism. The Taliban has made a commitment to prevent terrorist groups from using Afghanistan as a base for external operations that could threaten the United States or our allies, including al-Qaeda and the Taliban's sworn enemy, ISIS-K. Here, too, we will hold them accountable to that commitment.
After the last U.S. aircraft left Kabul, the Taliban fired celebratory shots as they took control of the airport. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said America has been defeated and it did not achieve all its objectives. However, he said the Taliban want good relations with the whole world, including the United States. Shortly before the US withdrawal, the UN Security Council adopted a resolution requiring the Taliban to let people freely leave Afghanistan. But the measure did not include a safe zone mentioned by French President Emmanuel Macron.
For more on this, we are joined by former Senator Sitara Ayaz. Ms. Sitara, do you think the U.S. exit will help stabilize Afghanistan, or the security situation may worsen there?
As we are right now, what the Afghan Taliban, what they are saying in their press conferences and their pressers, they are very confident that they can bring peace and make more like they will stabilize Afghanistan. But at this stage, it seems that there are so many other actors involved in all these things. The last U.S. Army, when they left, we can see the images that the people, they showed that how happy they are. Many images we saw today. So it depends now that if the other forces, the international forces, I must say, that if they leave Afghanistan to Taliban, maybe they'll bring peace and more stabilize Afghanistan. It's like beforehand, it's like difficult to say. But I must say that this time when we see the policies, what they are announcing to Taliban, it is very open, and it seems that they can bring, if they want and if they get some time, they can bring more stability over there. Because right now, if we see that there is only one place where they have some problem, Panjshir, but the Taliban, they are very confident that through dialogues they will solve that problem. So they are more for dialogues. They are more for going to their own people. They want their people to develop. So I guess that when they leave, the exit will help the Afghan people to think for their future, to make their country for themselves, to develop their country for themselves, instead of looking at the other people and other actors.
Right. Ms. Sitara, now given the recent surge in violence in Afghanistan, mainly due to ISKP attacks, how much of a security challenge could it pose to Pakistan?
There have been debates and analysis and prediction regarding, security and other challenges, and especially American forces, along with NATO allies, stays there for 2 decades, and now when they leave, and as I mentioned before, also that there are some actors who are involved in some activities. I feel that there can be a rise in cross-border attacks, which recently also we saw some, and some of them, as you mentioned, that over there they are attacking. So they are still operating from Afghanistan, though it is not a part of Afghan Taliban. And the Afghan Taliban, again and again in their press conferences, they mentioned that their land will not be used for any terrorist attacks from their land to their neighboring countries. But at this stage, as Afghanistan itself has a lot of challenges and problems, it will definitely create problems for us also. There is mostly, like maybe there are refugees also who want to enter Pakistan. So under that cover also we might have more terrorists enter Pakistan, sorry, and that is going to be a very big challenge for our for us, for the government, and for our agencies. So I think that the situation, if God forbid, if it is worsened in Afghanistan, it will definitely going to impact us. our people, especially our bordering areas, the tribal belt, the old tribal, now it's a part of KP, but those areas and Balochistan bordering areas, it's going to have impact on us and on our security agencies.
Right, Ms. Sitara, Afghanistan's new rulers, the Taliban, have pledged to ensure the rights of women and minorities. Do you think they will live up to their promise?
It seems that this time they are different with different policies, and what I'm hearing again and again, I'll prefer to their press conferences, because they again and again say that we are going to give all their rights, which is in Islam, to women. One thing in international media also, and all the time we are hearing this thing that minorities and women all the time. I think very clearly they said that the women can come to work, the schools will be open, but for a time being, because of security reasons, they are not letting women to come out from their houses. This is what their representatives in their press conferences mentioned. And I think that we have to give them some time. And let's see what they are now claiming. Let's see that will they be implementing? But this time, again, I personally feel that this time they have intention to implement their rights. And as one of their pressers, he very openly said that all the schools of girls' schools will be open, and the women who are working in a government departments, they can come too, but with a code, a dress code. So I think it is not a bad thing if they are mentioning with the dress code. What is bad in it? We have in other countries also, like in Iran, and then recently in France, very clearly they mentioned that nobody can enter school without their dress code. So I think it is their own country. They know their custom. They know their culture. They know how their culture is. So I think that beforehand, if we talk about anything, that is not right. I think let them. We should give them a chance and see. But one other thing is that in the last 20 years, the Afghan women and children, they already passed through a very, very bad time. That was a very bad time for them. When there was bomb attacks, there were so many other, they were free to go to the offices and everything, but still they were not safe over there. So let's see, and we cannot predict the future. Whatever they are saying, we have to believe that. But one thing I would like to mention that now this Taliban also should come up with a clear strategy, because they know that the West and the world is looking towards them, especially regarding the women issues and minorities. So they also now should come out with very clear strategy, so that the world and everybody should get the answer.
Right. Former Senator Sitara Ayaz, thank you for speaking to Indus News. In Afghanistan, at least 8 Taliban have been killed during clashes with militia fighters in the Panjshir Valley. A spokesman for the National Resistance Forces said the Taliban attacked groups' positions on western entrance to the valley. He said the resistance forces repulsed the attack, in which 8 Taliban and 2 of the NRF force members were wounded. In another development, France says the Taliban are in talks with Qatar and Turkey about the security and management of Kabul airport. Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said people who want to leave Afghanistan can do so using commercial flights. Le Drian said Paris must continue to put pressure on the Taliban, but is not negotiating with them. For more on this, we have with us Sumaira Khan, our correspondent from Kabul. Sumaira, can you please walk us through last night's final stages of U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan?
Thank you so much. Yes, it was a historical day and a night for the people of Afghanistan and for the incumbent setup of Afghanistan that has just taken over the country. And right now they are they are in a struggle to get it legitimized as well. But last night, the scenes we saw, the scenes we are witness to, they will be part of history forever. When we saw the last American soldier leaving Afghanistan was Major General Chris Denoff, commander of the U.S. Army, and he's also commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. So when he boarded the last C-17 Globemaster plane at the Hamid Karzai International Airport, they specifically took a picture of him boarding the plane, and this shows that even U.S. is right now in a struggle to keep the Taliban satisfied that yes, we are honoring our commitment that we'll be withdrawing from Afghanistan on the night of 31st August, 30th and 31st August, which was the deadline for this greatest withdrawal from Afghanistan. So last night we also started receiving information from both quarters, from Taliban as well and from the U.S. officers, from the Central Command officers, that U.S. is right now boarding the last dispatch of around 800 soldiers from different infantry and marine brigades, and there was a big number of airmen crew as well, because it was the airmen crew that was handling the ATC and other technical departments, and some were deployed on carrying out the air defense system operations as well. So this was the last contingent of 800 U.S. soldiers. And they flew out of Afghanistan last night, and then you already shared the details that how the night was celebrated by the Taliban quarters on the streets of Kabul. We saw sentiments everywhere. We saw the crying scouts of Taliban. We saw them chanting Nara Takbir and Allahu Akbar everywhere. They just fell into sajdas, and they offered the nawafil of Shukrana. So there was a kind of a very emotional scene that anyone could understood that yes, a 20 years long war has been brought to an end, and the spokesperson of Taliban, Zabiullah Mujahid, we tried to establish contact with him, but we received a voice note, and he said thanks to everyone. But at the same time, he also said his message to me was that we are trying to take care of every sister and brother who's a journalist and who's serving right now in Afghanistan, and they're reporting from the ground. But we want you safe, so please be careful and be safe everywhere. So. I can just say that the days ahead in Afghanistan and the days we just spent in Afghanistan, there will be a drastic difference. Right now, the security apparatus is being discussed by the Taliban leadership in Kandahar, and they are also deliberating upon how to contain ISIS kill. And apart from this, I think the sentiment I saw in amongst the people of Afghanistan, to be very honest, there is still fear. They are scared, but they're very uncertain about the future as well. But I think if the Taliban, as Secretary Blinken said, if the Taliban are in the right direction and the right measures to take, I think the country will be back on track once again. And I hope that he keeps the word as well, that yes, the international community is there, and the aid flow is going to be through the international agencies to Afghanistan. So it means he is giving a hope that Afghanistan will not be abandoned in a way that it sees a kind of humanitarian crisis. Pakistan is already there. Pakistan is in contact with the WHO and other international agencies to thwart that humanitarian crisis. But yes, we need bigger countries to come and join hands to thwart that. So we hope for the best.
Right, Sumaira, what is the general feeling on the ground in Afghanistan this morning, with the country's foreign occupation ending after 20 long years?
Yes, we are keeping our fingers crossed. We are looking towards the Kandahar. Kandahar is right now the base for the incumbent military, the incumbent Taliban leadership. And in a day or two, we can see an announcement. We are just trying to keep a track on every development that comes from Kandahar. But we are also hearing that there is a round of consultation on where to announce the formation of government, and if they announce the formation of government not in Kabul, then yes, this is going to be at Kandahar, because these are mixed reports from the authorities right now. So this is one news right now, and the second news is regarding there is a pressure on Taliban quarters to announce the government formation at Doha. So these three options are right now under consideration. But we can very surely say that the negotiation team that has been called back from Panjshir, they also joined the consultation teams at Kandahar. So I guess the formation of government is due in a day or two. So it's quite nearby now.
Right, Samira, the Taliban said they would announce the status of government formation right after the completion of U.S. withdrawal. Is there any progress on that front?
Panjshir, all of a sudden it saw a turn of events last night when Maulana Turabi and Aminul Haq, after the arrival of Aminul Haq, Maulana Turabi was called to Kandahar and along with his team. And there were contingents who started advancing towards Panjshir Valley. And we also heard news of initial clash of the people of Valley and Taliban contingents. But the Taliban are, for the first time, they're advancing from the Badakhshan and Andarab directions to the valley. So we are still waiting for the ground realities to reach us, because there is no communication right now, and we are unable to reach our sources as well, because they are right now out of communication. But in the next couple of hours, yes, unfortunately, we are hearing news of clashes, deadly clashes, but we still want to confirm it before we claim anything.
Samira Khan, thank you for updating us. And now we're moving on. Pakistan's foreign minister has called on the international community to differentiate between the spoilers and supporters of peace in Afghanistan. Shah Mahmood Qureshi made these remarks in a press conference with his visiting German counterpart Heiko Maas. Qureshi said Islamabad wants peace in Afghanistan and the world must support it. The foreign minister said he expects a consensus government to be formed in the coming days in Afghanistan. He noted that Afghanistan is in need of humanitarian aid and called on the world to contribute to its stability. For his part, the German foreign minister thanked Pakistan for the safe evacuation of foreign nationals from Kabul. Maas said Germany will see if the new Taliban government honors its pledge to allow civilians to leave from Kabul airport. Maas said Berlin values its ties with Islamabad and stands ready to support Afghanistan's neighboring countries. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. China says U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan proves that arbitrary military interventions in other countries are doomed to fail. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson also condemned what he called the policy of imposing own values and social system on other states. In a press briefing, Wang Wenbin said the international community should respect Afghanistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The diplomat added the U.S. should provide necessary economic and humanitarian assistance to Kabul. Wang noted China will continue to support the peace and reconstruction process in Afghanistan, which he said will be based on respect for the will of the Afghan people. A Pakistani soldier has been martyred in an IED blast in South Waziristan. The military's media wing said the incident occurred during a clearance operation in Asman Manza area. In a statement, ISPR added that one of the terrorists was killed while trying to flee. It said the security forces immediately cordoned off the area to apprehend the terrorists. The martyred soldier has been identified as Sepoy Wajidullah and resident of Karak district. At least 8 people have been wounded in drone strikes on Saudi Arabia's Abha airport. State television reported the attack that also damaged a civilian airplane was carried out by Houthi rebels in Yemen. The Saudi-led coalition earlier said it intercepted a Houthi drone that was targeting the airport. The Houthis did not claim responsibility for the attack, but the group regularly fires drones and missiles into Saudi Arabia. Separately, the Yemeni army claimed to have killed at least 23 Houthi rebels during clashes in Marib province. The region is the last stronghold of the Yemeni government in the north. Iran says its direct talks with Saudi Arabia are expected to resume soon after the new government is set up in Tehran. The country's foreign minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian made the remarks during an interview with the state media. Amir Abdullahian says he spoke to his Saudi counterpart at the Baghdad summit about the resumption of talks. Earlier, Iran's envoy to Baghdad also confirmed that the 4th round of talks with Saudi officials will be held soon. The two regional rivals began secret talks hosted by Iraq in April. Israeli soldiers injured 6 Palestinians, including one who suffered life-threatening wounds in the Khan Yunis city of the besieged Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Health Ministry said the soldiers stationed across the perimeter fence shot 3 Palestinians with live fire. Meanwhile, in West Bank city of Nablus as well, Israeli army injured dozens of Palestinians in a raid on a village. Palestinian media said at least 12 Israeli military's armored vehicles invaded the village after isolating it. The occupation forces arrested at least a dozen Palestinians in raids on several cities of the West Bank. At least 4 Syrian soldiers have been killed in attacks on army checkpoints in southern Dara al-Balad region. This comes after Russia brokered talks to end the presence of opposition fighters in the area collapsed. Syrian state media said 15 soldiers were also injured, while 2 civilians were wounded in attacks on residential neighborhoods. It reported that attackers used rockets, mortar shells, machine guns and snipers in their raids. The media said the Syrian army responded to the raid and targeted attackers' missile launchers in several areas. The opposition forces blamed the regime for the escalation, saying troops were pressing an offensive to force insurgents to surrender. The spokesperson for the jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has left Russia. State news agency says Kira Yarmysh has flown to the Finnish capital Helsinki. A Russian court had imposed 18 months of restrictions on her freedom of movement earlier this month. She was found guilty of breaching safety rules. Russian authorities have cracked down hard on the opposition ahead of the parliamentary election next month. Consequently, many of Navalny's most prominent allies have left Russia rather than face restrictions or jail at home. Mexico has reported 326 deaths and over 5,000 infections in the past 24 hours. Globally, the coronavirus toll is over 4.5 million, while the caseload has surpassed 217 million. More in this report.
The number of cases from the Delta variant of COVID-19 continues to rise even in countries that have vaccinated most of their populations. In the US, more children are coming down with the virus and cases of adults under 50 are highest ever. Meanwhile, a new report has cautioned that seizures may be the only symptoms of COVID-19 in some children. Australia has signed a swap deal with Singapore to receive 500,000 doses of Pfizer's vaccine. This comes as the country struggles to contain the surge in Delta variant, with officials urging citizens to get vaccinated.
Not getting vaccinated is actually self-entitled and indulgent in the extreme in the middle of a pandemic. Go and get vaccinated and be fair to the rest of your community.
The European Union has removed 6 countries, including the US, from a COVID white list of places. Citizens from these territories are subject to entry bans for non-essential travel purposes, including tourism. Brussels has begun offering COVID-19 jabs in supermarkets and shopping centres to increase vaccination rates.
In the beginning of the campaign, we asked the people to go to a vaccination center. Now we really try to bring as much as possible the vaccine to the people. And so we're selecting a number of areas where a lot of people are passing by. And so we try really to offer them the vaccine at their place, actually at their environment, where they work, where they go to school, where they live, and also where they shop, of course. And that's why we opened these vaccination points in the shopping areas.
In Japan, the health minister says it is highly likely that foreign matter found in Moderna vaccine were caused when needles were struck into the vials. Some Moderna shots were temporarily halted in the southern prefecture of Okinawa after foreign materials were discovered in vials and syringes. The health ministry says needles may have been incorrectly inserted into vials, breaking off bits of the rubber stopper. Meanwhile, South African scientists have detected a new variant with multiple mutations but are yet to establish whether it is more contagious. The number of cases from the Delta variant of COVID.
In Pakistan, 118 people have lost their lives to the coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the tally of fatalities is nearing 25,800. It said the virus infected over 3,800 people overnight. This brings the positivity rate to 7.36%. The country has so far reported over 1 million cases, of which over 9,400 have been recovered. Pakistan has administered over 55 million vaccine doses to date. The number of hate crimes in the U.S. rose last year to the highest level in more than a decade. The Federal Investigation Agency reported the increase was driven by a rise in assaults against blacks and Asians. The FBI said 7,759 hate crimes were reported across the country in the past year. The data was collected from over 15,000 law enforcement in the U.S. This is a 6% increase over 2019 and the highest tally since 2008. The report says that offences targeting black people rose to 2,755 from last year's 1,930, while incidents against Asians jumped to 274 from 158. Meanwhile, the country's Justice Department has warned about the rising security threat of white supremacist groups. The UN Security Council has unanimously adopted a resolution renewing sanctions against Mali for another year. The sanctions include a travel ban and asset freeze on targeted individuals and entities, which will continue until 31st of August 2022. In a statement, the Council said the listed individuals and entities obstruct implementation of the 2015 Agreement on Peace and Reconciliation in Mali. A UN report says the human rights violations have soared in Mali, with an increase of 25% recorded in the second quarter of 2021. The sanctions regime on the West African country was due to expire today. The UN Security Council has voted to renew the mandate of the UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon for another year. In a tweet, Beirut's envoy to the UN, Amal Moudalali, said the decision to extend the mission was reached unanimously after difficult negotiations. The UN sent the peacekeepers in Lebanon to ensure the withdrawal of Israeli forces after they invaded the country in 1978. In a statement, the Security Council condemned all violations of the Blue Line, both by air and ground. It urged Israel to expedite the withdrawal of its army from northern Gaza without further delay. In the U.S. state of California, residents and tourists in communities near Lake Tahoe fled as a fierce wildfire roared closer to the popular resort destination. Vehicles loaded with bikes and camping gear were stuck in gridlock traffic that is stalled in hazy and brown air. The U.S. Forest Service says it is taking an unusual step of closing all 18 national forests in California to the public in the midst of a fire season. The agency also cited significantly limited resources available for wildfire suppression, given the scores of large blazes burning in the state. More than 6,800 wildfires have blackened an estimated 1.7 million acres within California alone this season. Meanwhile, the so-called Caldor blaze near Lake Tahoe has emerged as one of the most destructive and disruptive this summer. As the U.S. Gulf Coast sifts through the aftermath of the Ida hurricane, A heat advisory has been issued for southern Louisiana and Mississippi. The National Weather Service says heat is the #1 weather-related fatality in the U.S. More than 2 million people in the landfall area are reportedly under the advisory. Earlier add a weekend to a tropical depression over Mississippi, while heavy rainfall and a flash flooding threat continue to spread inland. More than 1 million customers in Louisiana, 60,000 in Mississippi and 16,000 in Alabama are without power. Officials say some areas could spend up to the next month of their recovery without power. Japan says climate change is a key global challenge and it will work along the international community for global decarbonization. Foreign Minister Motegi Toshimitsu made these remarks during a meeting with U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change John Kerry in Tokyo. He said Japan will make the utmost use of its technologies in order to meet its target of carbon neutrality by 2050. Meanwhile, Kerry responded by introducing Washington's efforts and future plans in the area of climate change. The U.S. climate envoy will also meet Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and other officials to discuss the issue. He will also visit China for talks on cooperation for cutting carbon emissions. European stocks have inched higher when investors digesting the latest economic data from Europe and Asia. Frankfurt DAX and Italy's FTSE MIB have gained over 0.5%. The Pan-European Stock 600 and the CAC 40 in Paris have also edged up fractionally. Earlier Asian stocks also made modest gains. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.